Back to the mindset. You a big dude to show it around that little. It's gonna take me one bar to get back with you. I'm gonna stomp you until a searchlight reveals a night wing like a bat signal. We warmed up. Are we warmed up? Yeah. This is the thing. I give a fuck about any of that shit that you bring. They might like you. Or try to. The first time that you listen to it. But I got this king of the chat. You know what that requires? Repositioning. You ain't shit to me. Literally. I got a divine right, and God willing, it's 16. It's not a mystery. A real king don't need a handout to have these bitches face down and kissing rings. Give me something interesting. Even Princeton, you can never execute with this shit. All that. This fucking bag becomes a match for a guillotine. So I'm asking, what about the disconnected skull? Where the fuck does his head go? Well, Red Bull, I'ma give you points. Are you people? How many second checks we gotta give before you get receipts? By the end, she's still something might be calling you. You know why? Because I never miss a beat in the shit it beats. You've never been this elite. You got time for this, man. Why did you invite these kids? So you make up clients for. I was collecting title wins. He was perfecting silences. Miss me with the childishness. If that motherfucker called smack right now, his name would pop up as what might have been. You cannot rely on him. Time and time again, it's Bill and Ted. The rest is history because he dialed it in. Fuck you. Mechanic, fumbling ratchets. The truth is, I already got the blood. The spark plugs in the gasket. I'll give you a carpet jump. It's gonna come with a backflip. Get your ass kicked. You want them Dracula tactics. Half the time he's sucking. Half the time the ring going bench. And that's why that half ring will come with an asterisk. Man, just you imagine, like you walk in his shop, and he like, what are you asking? And I hit him like, V8, it runs like a champ, the engine runs like magic, but I heard about your work, Jay. Do me a favor, do that one thing you do and just fuck up this classic. Watch you look at it. Why is he looking at me, bro? Act like I'm somebody you heart chasing. Act like you want to have your heart racing. You know the only thing that's good for a blackout? Stargazing. I am the motherfucker. No matter what, I will take this cat out of the bag, and that's a quote you can trust. I'm way better. Chain letter. I might have to send this message when I open you up. You are a stupid ass mechanic who should or you're nuts. Guess what I'm running for you to fix your stupid little bitch a fucking Cobra clutch. See, I don't know how to run. Looks like the motherfucking roast has begun. It's a 30-piece wing coming over from lunch. You do not know that. I'm on some shit. But you know the only thing that you got in JavaScript. So I came to Toronto. It's kind of from the marketing. Say about to lose capital when I put the dot on the top of it. I had 3 but 2 people like a doctor and I won't tell you people not to follow him. But don't act like this shit closed just because I wouldn't talk again. 3 minutes, I'm keeping that. Let's get it. Let's go.
Battle rap in bad shape from all the extra shit. I've been watching it. My father gets in some shit too ridiculous to stay on top of it. I was thinking for a while now, like, maybe it's just time to quit. When I lost my grandmother, I felt like God already decided it. She used to tell me all the time, fight with my mind and not the fist. The little grandmas would pray for like 2 hours straight for you, non-stop with it. Once we came back home and fight all the politics, a lot of the people from this same culture, they help sponsor it. I ain't never gonna forget that. Y'all know I forget a lot of shit. I am sincerely sorry for all that. But not for this. Let me be clear. I took off this year. Yep. Let me be clear. I took off this year. I'm sick of the frauds. Act like they're above criticism, but we've been here before. This is recidivism. Y'all want correction and just revisit the bar. Y'all begging the mechanic to come back to fixing the car. I guess it doesn't matter whether the kitchen or the my Michelin stuff. Back into my own mission from God, man is flesh, because I don't have no flesh. I've no victim with scars, still top 5 on the net, ain't even been on the cars. I'm sure I've been told I wouldn't know if my subscription was on. But all you niggas is lost, and I get it. Still can't help but feel like I don't know what I'm really here for. It's completely my mind this year. Type of mind that could have been a trap star designed the Dyson sphere. Still can't figure out why he's here. It's not like he is. It ain't how I ride a win battle. It ain't that I fight up there. I'm not fighting fear. They look at Jake that would look away from a Tyson stare. So what could I be afraid of? If you do me a favor, he bites my ear. Saving me from the voices at night I hear. Saving me for the voices at night I hear. Voices from the grave, you don't join the day getting laid with a wide-eyed stare. It's just a shovel. Listen, it's just a shovel pack before I double back. I'll see you in my nightmares. As if I have any. Glass of moonshine is hindsight. Like you taking the night there was lockdown was a bright idea. Because you were blind. Well, I know I can make my mind see it. I'm already in my 9 years. Why do I give a fuck? Any name higher than mine, I'm scared. Every time I go to the table, niggas hide in my chair. They can't even properly They can't even properly give me a loss. A battle of tosses just another life I'm spared. I'm telling you, the gods ain't really gods, and not even the God that created the seven guys can. So why am I here? If I'm being honest, it's hard watching the culture slip. But it go to shit when this is a holy outlet for those with no motives. Let it go through shit. Fuck all this focus. I've spoken as a chosen for almost hopeless. We found the open with no open look for the gossiping bullshit. Now the gods said, I am the chosen. I've spoken with those trying to hold their rent, hold their fist by punching a hole in the wall, holding it all together in a home where holes and only get broken in. I am the chosen. I spoke from that moving 106 kids on their shit. Working OT shit. It's when they kids go to school. No one sits and looks up their clothes don't fit. Chosen. I spoke with a grown-ass women and grown-ass men, a blue-collar bomb. That's why I had to work to shower. Figure cold as shit. I spoke with a face. I spoke with 12 hours on Twitter spaces amongst child molesters, snitches, rapists. Yeah, holy shit. So let the clouds turn this into a circus and we don't know we did. So where do we go from this? I say if you don't remain focused, how far we as a conscience, it means shit. We don't
We kids when we lost this. And without these the results we get some of our process. I want y'all to think of bigger moments in the culture over 20 years strong, so I know it's gonna be a long ass list. And then recognize all of that was for nothing, and this is something that should won't exist. So what we doing?
Okay.
Stop pump faking your retirement. If you retire, you still wrong. Had nothing to do with the status quo here. You're just a failure and can't shoulder it. All right, the bill collector took your money. Welcome to adulthood, bitch. Hey, stop smoking. Yeah, hey, man, that shit emotional. Salty bitch. Tomorrow, and I can't even get a home attack. Get over here. One last favor for the culture. And leave it now. That entitlement and recognition don't be the reason you can't leave it proud, because you're not mad enough. That's why I'll never see us like we on equal ground. We're dead by the time they recognize. I came back for those who see it now. Stay the fuck out of my room.
Hey, I want this card.
You're the hunter. I'm the hunter. If you want so the weak, you learn that you run better than hunger. I'm a sneakerhead. I've seen a lot of J's out here, and there comes a point you just associate them with, you know. You wouldn't need it if you wanted such a slow starter. I'm the type of walk off in the six after a J get hit in the dome like Joe Biden. We ain't doing it. You can't work with Smith. Handling his lip like a Fu Manchu. Every chance you ever get, you start panicking and shit. You tap out and start looking like the Blue Neck Group. It's like a two-piece shit, this should have been booed and cheered the moment you appeared on that room. I mean, most of us expected to see Joe Nye's name, but much like Joe Nye's name, we don't know what the Jay is doing here. On the stage of League, he remains beneath me. I'm the cheat code up against a blatant cheat sheet. He became a pack trying to tell me to relax in a battle that I'm obviously taking. Easy. Step in the flex. You trying to tell me that Wing got some hot ones? Every round I've seen is a temperature check. Yeah, but acting real extra makes sense. It's a casting call, A-ball, corner pocket. I'm done with this game unless there's scratch involved, which I am overly nice. So you show up to fight. That should be normal in life, but you're a roll of the dice. We don't even know if this man don't or alright. They know Netflix will show up and black out every time, but this venue had to guess who my opponent was twice. Now we go to the light, and one would be right to build all of that board, and you sign the ball. You see what happens when a round gets called? Motherfucker, you can bring him to see. He'll learn to not fuck with flex when the genius to me. You're still trying to think of a tweet. Now go check your Twitter. Everybody see an X when a wing used to be. Every stage you want, you're trying to shine all night. Man, only put up these battles, win the war. You and Jimmy tonight can do it 9 more times. Let me pause this game. This bothers me. Because you said the thing about choke artists is they know something about artistry. I think a choke artist should focus on what's missing from the arteries, but say something stupid. My dogs will have it covered with blackout in the background like Drake sung through, just like magic. So you pass away. Jackson stage, you need to step back, Jermaine, or they won't see night for months like Alaskan days. Night doesn't have a place. Fuck all that. They won't see Night show at all like a matinee, man. I am tired of this shit. Wrestling, both working together like bipartisan shit. He will be when his friends gathered around. I don't even know if he breathe.
Let me get a Black Skull Dragon.
You see the snakes, the niggas, those are those. This guy, like, look, I see a head show, no Medusa. That's why I pop up like, check out all the Medusas, man. They can't even tell he's Samoan like Yokozuna. Stay on my fucking food, bro. I told the mechanics for tune-up. She must be new. Wow, what did I expect? Show so much that you would think he run around the neck. Show so much that you don't wonder why you left when I show up, and don't blame it on the struggles I collect. Toronto, what if I'm the best? There are legends in this culture, more than one that I've impressed. But people say you lost to build. I give a fuck about it, Chet.
Hey, red eye.
Let me tell you one of my requests. In the name of rap chairman on my underground cassettes, I call upon my rap heroes now to live a fire forever. Because in the house of hip-hop, they beat the rug and find the mess. In the house of hip-hop, they keep the gutters nice and swept. In the house of hip-hop, they reach it up to wipe the bench. You know who's clean out here? I'll tell you, Jay. Rum and shining Rex. Lux and ice and nest. We love the vibrant sets, but if Jay can't keep the house clean, do not talk to me like I'm an uninvited guest. If you know the prophecy, we're done finding the ground. That shit you struggle to remember, that ain't something time forgets. My career, multiple countries, and a bunch of flight connects. Mad King, Walmart, maybe Joe, it really will not change the world without the butterflies. And this look to his fingertips. You can't spell you can't spell winging it without putting a wing in it. Snipe poser, flamethrower, fucking dropping the sleeves. Risk, low reward. No, love you guys. Fucking
damn. Oh well. Yeah.
Those drops on shit.
I didn't expect that battle to take so much. I didn't expect me to get so emotional, especially in that third. Sometimes, you know, shit just starts moving, and you know, like God is taking over, you know. I'm just blessed to be able to feel like that. I'm grateful.
I mean, Jay's just an agent. There's no thing like Jay because nobody can beat Jay. And Jay's special, which is why it became a battle that needed to happen, right? I think both of us have been special in our own way. So I know I'm gonna do my shit my way. People fuck with it heavy, or it's something hard to process. Jay's the same way. Like Jay his skill set is so unique that people can hide. That's how unique Jay. You know, I think that we both
the only thing I can really feel right now is gratitude, man. It's just, you know, blessed to be here, man. Blessed to be able to do this, you know. But, I can pick out this, we can keep going.
Shout out to Glass House, man. It's fucking gas to be all in, you know, the fucking greatest rehab center in the world. You know, shouts to the squad, fucking QSR always, man, Peanut. You know, I got a lot of fucking fun right now, and it is what it is. Shouts to Killer, shouts to Pat State.
Shout out to God, shout out to my wife and kids. Shout out to my mother, you know, went 16 and 20. Biggest thing, you know what I mean? That's a bad. That's a thing. Appreciate you. And you're welcome. Shout out to KLTD, shout out to Yannick, Reno, man, like everybody that, you know, was a part of this was not an easy thing, and then just like, you know, get decided and things were running smoothly. Like this almost didn't happen so closely. Like the fact that it did is yeah, like, so shout out to us too. Like, yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Dear cable internet, I've met someone. U.S. Cellular Home Internet and I just want to start a connection.
For a limited time, get 1 year of U.S. Cellular's home internet and mobile service for just $35 a month. U.S. Cellular, built for us. You can see the talking guys. Oh, your phones. And explain it with figures. These are the things. By the way, I'm trying to before you're ready to go. Set up your dimensions in this, and so how would you tell whether that's the case? If you imagine looking at an extended object like a wire, it just looks one dimensional and just looks like it has a length. But if you were able to get really close to that wire, you see that it also has something like a thickness. And so that's the direction of what's called compact.
Is it possible to have a compacted like time dimension as well?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, imagine 2 dimensions of time.
Wow. The problem with two-time dimensional theories and compact dimensions in general is that it's very hard to maintain causality.
Our dimensions look down on us.
That's exciting. This is Star Talk. The Grass Tyson, your personal astrophysicist. That's Chuck. Nice to meet you. How you doing, Chuck? Hey,
Doing great, man.
all right. A comedian, actor. Yeah. You've seen a few TV commercials here and there.
Yeah, you know, listen, sometimes I have nothing to do.
So today we got a really cool topic that's always on everybody's mind. Like everybody who cares about the universe.
You know, even people who don't, but I'll get into that later. Yeah, you know, what we're talking about, I've heard some really weird stuff from people that, you know,
You're going to get into it.
that, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. We're talking today about senses.
Yeah.
And then we have our man about town, right here, Brian Green, right up the street. Right. Well, I said, you know, all of the universe is not Brian Green.
You know, he would beg to differ.
So I said, so we have reached out to the cosmos.
Yes.
All right. And we found Laura Anderson. Laura, welcome to Star Talk.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so you're Associate Professor of Physics at Virginia Tech. One of our producers is from Virginia Tech. So you right at home here on that.
Yeah, your family now.
Yeah, your family.
This is your friend.
Also, like Brian Green, you have a double affiliation also with the mathematics department.
I do. I'm an associate professor in mathematics, which means I can supervise math class students.
Oh, so you just taking jobs from everybody. The professor's out on the street because of Laura.
I can kind of picture how they like I'll be a math over for
Yeah, exactly. Little math for food.
I think unfortunately that is a job.
I did it called tutors, really, exactly. And your research includes, I have here, the geometry and particle phenomenology in string theory. So, let's just get to the bottom of it. What is string theory?
Yes.
String theory is an attempt to reconcile sequences, general relativity, ability, gravity, with This one was on quantum mechanics and quantum physics. So it is a persistent quantum theory of gravity. It may not be the way that quantum gravity works in our universe, but at the very least, it's a theoretical playground where we get to ask questions about quantum gravity.
But you've made an assumption in there, and I agree with this assumption, but I want to hear you defend it. You are trying to absorb Einstein's general theory of relativity, our modern understanding of gravity, right, into a quantum description. Why aren't you trying to take the quantum and absorb it into a general relativity description?
Because inherent in what both of you said, there must be an incongruency that would cause you to do that.
Exactly. So again, why don't you start with that one? What is the incongruency here that you're trying to resolve?
Two of the greatest intellectual accomplishments of the 20th century, in my opinion, are Einstein's theory of gravity and the description of fundamental interactions in nature as described by particle physics. So things like a description of quarks, fundamental particles, how they interact with each other, that gives us a description of things like electromagnetism and strong movement forces. These sort of basic building blocks of matter, these fundamental Legos that we couldn't put together, they're described very well by quantum field theory. The issue, the sort of discrepancy between these two, is that each separately are able to make predictions that are incredibly accurate in our modern day. So we can make predictions for like 13 significant figures using either of these theoretical frameworks.
Every 13 decimal places, but it's 13 significant figures, yeah. I'm going to say that's pretty accurate.
It can be right, yeah, and like things like modern GPS wouldn't work without basic testing. They seem really robust, and they're telling us really important things about how the world behaves. Unfortunately, we try and combine the two, so we try and describe phenomena that might be clues. So, for example, things where the interaction of particles and very short distance scales are in play, but also where there's really strong acceleration. So, for example, inside a black hole. That would be a regime where you need both of these theories and frameworks to agree and give me concrete predictions. And unfortunately, the theories break down when you try and combine them, and you don't end up getting useful answers. You get very manifestly wrong answers that help disastrous infinity. Things that just don't predict anything.
Disastrous infinity.
Man, you can't get more dist than that.
Sounds like the worst marriage ever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's disastrous infinity. So what gives you the confidence that it is the quantum physics understanding that will absorb gravity and not gravity absorbing quantum physics?
It's a great question. So I think that it should be a two-way street. So in order to describe either phenomena, you need something that can be described in both frameworks. Einstein's theory is sort of intrinsically classical, meaning that this picture of the curvature of space and time, it's not designed for sort of the quantum mechanical uncertainties that we know and observe in particle physics. So in that sense, we know that Einstein's theory, probably at a granular level, if you sort of zoom in, should evolve into something quantum mechanical. But the exact form of that is up for exploration.
Okay. So that works. Now, you mentioned fundamental particles, and you go back to ancient Greece, the atom was a fundamental particle.
That was the smallest thing that you could be.
Right? And then we break the atom and all those other particles. And so you listed like electrons, that's fundamental, and you mentioned quarks. What gives you the confidence that we can't keep dividing matter?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think most theoretical physicists would not say that we are 100% confident that he's out there. This is the zoo of particles that we've observed so far that seem to match a phenomena with forces and interactions and effects that we see in nature. But absolutely, there could be smaller things in play, and maybe string theory predicts that there are.
Oh, really? Oh, right, exactly. That's the little
vibrating
string. So the string is the
The string is the
So take us there. Okay, take us out. Now, how does strings come into this?
So the idea behind string theory, the 2-minute version of what string theory tries to do, is it says, imagine that instead of describing particles as little particles that move through space, imagine that instead, if you were able to zoom in far enough, that you could have an object that has an extended length associated with it. And the very rough idea is that just like a violin string can vibrate in different ways and produce different notes, these little fundamental strings can vibrate into different configurations, and it turns out they can change their properties. The mathematics of how you describe these things, and then you can change their properties based on how they vibrate. So they can vibrate one way and begin off, vibrate another way and be a force. And that seems like a very sort of cute idea of you describing for physics in a very simple way.
But if that's the case, in principle, you ought to be able to pull up the string that is otherwise an electron and get a torque out of it. Have you done this?
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool about this framework, and then also two things that are
That's crazy.
really cool. So, why don't we just ask or delve in are these strings things? The theory predicts that these fundamental length scales of strings are so small that we would need a particle accelerator about the size of the solar system in order to snap things together and directly see those strings. Which unfortunately we do not have access to those type of energy scales yet.
Just to affirm what is implicit in your statement, the larger the particle accelerator, the faster you can speed the particle that when they collide, there's much more energy in that collision. You probe regimes that previous accelerators could not.
That's right.
Okay, and so you scale up what we got going now, and you need something besides the solar system to get to these energies.
Yeah, which doesn't seem very rapid.
Okay, right. So what's plan B?
Let me just throw one thing there about string theory that I think is important to say. So, if you ask about mechanical fields, and you say what kind of spaces could they move through? It turns out that quantum theory of quantum mechanics can be formulated in any type of space. So they can move through basically any background that you choose, any configuration of space. But if you ask the same question for these little one-dimensional strings, you say, where can quantum mechanical string move? It turns out that the only spaces that they're allowed to move in and do their thing of vibrating in different ways and being different particles, the only space they can do that in are spaces that obey Einstein's equations of general relativity.
That sounds good.
Wow. Yeah. So you actually get gravity for free in formulations from mechanical strings. So we sometimes say that quantum gravity is consistent and also compulsory in string theory because it's being, you're forced on you by the equations that the string comes out.
So that's a good feeling then, because it means something is talking to something else in the formulation that was not crowbarred in to begin with.
That's right. So to be being handed to is I think something that early in the development of string theory got a lot of people excited. Unfortunately, like many good things, the problem in string theory is that this beautiful combination of this perspective. You can describe all of particle physics by one little extended object, you get gravity for free, only seems to work if the universe that this happens in has more than 3 spatial dimensions and 1 time-like dimension that we seem to see in our universe. Vital proteins, collagen peptides, to help you get skin, nails, and joints. You didn't even use all the old stuff. Working, family owned, and the best value in town. These qualities have set Borders apart since 1942 with no plans on changing anytime soon. It's what's helped us make so many dreams come true, one room at a time. Whether it's reimagining your entire home or just bringing new life to single space, Borders is ready to provide the value you deserve with incredible promotions and finance. You'll find exactly what you're looking for, with that warm, feel that will reach every moment. Stop into any of Borders' 4 locations for food savings and everything you need to feel at home. Ready for us to look at that's 54 grams of protein. And of any trouble in the remember, order on 7.
So you need extra dimensions because right now we live in 4 dimensions, which is 3 spatial plus time. You need more dimensions in order to make this thing work. But we don't have access to more dimensions, so we can't really say for sure.
Well, it seems like a really big intellectual leap, right? We're pretty happy with our 2 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. So the first pass is like, could this at all, is this just a deal breaker, right? Is there any way that this could be consistent with what we've already observed about the universe? And as you were just alluding to, right, the question is, could this actually be consistent? And so would be trying whether that's the case. You can see that these 2 dimensions, because if they were to exist, they could be the same size as the rest of the dimensions that we see. So if you look around, you can see that we have very large spatial extent for side to side, up and down, and twist time. If there were those other directions, they would have to be really, really small compared to the rest of our universe. And the analog for that is, if you imagine looking at an extended object like a wire from really far away, it just looks one-dimensional. It just looks like it has a length. But if you were able to get really close to that wire, you'd see that it also has something like a thickness, a radial direction. And so that extra direction is what's called compact, meaning that it's very small compared to, say, the length of the wire. So one thing that we do know is that if this had any chance of working, these extra dimensions would have to be compact and very small compared to the rest of our universe.
Okay, you're freaking me out right now because, I'm just going to say it. So, I was down in Costa Rica doing ayahuasca for a week. And in that time, I had an experience where I met these beings who told me about dimensions that existed inside of our dimension. So they were alongside of, yet inside of the dimension that we lived in. And I can only think that maybe that was a presupposed, pre-planted, post-hypnotic suggestion because I have actually read about string theory because it took well, Lauren, what drug have you been taking? My follow-up question is, what did you do? That's right. Is it possible to have a detective time dimension as well? Or is all the models only stuck with one time dimension? Ooh, I never even considered that. Yeah, imagine 2 dimensions of time. Wow. Go ahead.
Dimensional theories and dimensions in general is that it's very hard to maintain causality in such theories. So if you have a time direction you can loop platform itself, it's possible to have all of those up and time and super jump situation getting pretty quick. So to maintain consistent theories with multiple time directions or time directions, I don't think it's impossible, but most people don't consider it a very viable way forward.
You would have to discard causality altogether in order to do that?
In general, the causality is causality in such theories. So there may be some creative ways to get around that, but generally I think it's possible.
Well, we have a Steve Hawking on one of our earlier episodes. You find it in our archive. We went to University of Cambridge. So I've been filled with them for a bit.
Tell me, he proposed a time travel conjecture, something like that. Tell us what that was. And does that save us from this or that?
There are a number of conjectures, say in the theory of gravity, that say that causality is an important structure. So that in general, when we need that consistent theories of gravity or indeed should allow.
You just can't get it to work. Okay. Yeah. That's how we get. I mean, that removes many movies in the repertoire where you got to go back and change the past. Exactly. Like Terminator. All the Terminator.
We look back in the past, but we look forward to many futures. So the idea of being able to look back and say, at this particular point, all those many futures still exist. If I go back to that point, change it to one of these other tracks. You know, it's a great fantasy, and it makes sense to have that fantasy. But what you're saying is, it's a stupid fantasy because it ain't never happened.
This might win me the game. And no one's one month.
Not a scientist.
Just consider to say never say never. You said never. You just said never. You can't say never say never. Without saying never say never. It's self-defense. Don't you know this?
Yeah, right. I didn't know they choose that one. That's some bullshit. Yeah.
Before we sort of pivot to this whole thing of phenomenology, I don't know, the big word with a lot of syllables, I've heard it in especially physics. But before we step there, I just want you to understand, how will you ever test string theory? And we know in advance that you have naysayers out there, physicists among them, who are saying you're diverting time, resources, graduate students, faculty positions to something. that doesn't even classify as a legitimate scientific theory or hypothesis because you need to be able to test it without the test. So let me hear your response to that.
For any theoretical framework where you can get this stuff,
Baby Dragon.
there's a big intellectual leap, right? And for example, Superman things is a pretty big leap. You justify that with a payoff, right? You have to say, what is the benefit that I'm going to give you in terms of structure and predictions and what you're learning from these theories. So to push back on how you're going to test it, when you observe first that in concept theory in general, the time scale between predicting structure in particle theory and then being able to see it in experiment over the last century have gone increased in size considerably. So one example of this is the prediction of the Higgs boson made by Peter Higgs, which took 50 years from the prediction that this particle could exist to its observation of the
That means the theorists are just way ahead of the experimentalists. I guess some deadbeat experimentalists.
I say that dialogue of theory and experiment is really important, but I'm just pointing out that direct experiment of direct
Baby
verification
Dragon.
of lots of things is hard. It doesn't mean that one shouldn't do it. It just means that you have to be deciding what timescales are relevant for that question. For string theory, I would say the problem is a lot worse than it was for something like the prediction of the Higgs boson because the energy scales are so massive to directly observe strings. So for me personally, I'm interested in trying to decide whether string theory is useful a lot faster than that from the point of view of my career. And I remain very interested as to whether that's the case. So
You want to be alive when
you decide this. And because if somebody could demonstrate to me right now that string theory was for sure not useful for our universe, I'd choose to work on something else. So what do I think is the most direct way to those types of answers? Is that in string theory, many types of structure and results in physics are really intercorrelated. So, the particle physics description of all the particles we know about so far, the standard and whole particle physics.
that's the organization of all the particles that we know. It's all in one part. And so this connects to that, and this connects here, and it's a beautiful thing, actually, when you step up and it's a fun, and that happened, I'm older than both y'all.
Yo, what up, everybody? Black Eye.
Started assembling a little earlier too, but the full picture is coming together as we found these other particles to flesh it out. It's a periodic table of particles. Yeah, okay.
Baby Dragon.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so picking up there, sorry.
Interested in physics, reading books like people like that and doing those written on the standard models on a piece of paper and then put a zero circles on like third or on a piece of paper. Perfect. I think a super, community young person.
Right. Girl geek in the house. Love it. Girl geek and love it.
Yeah, totally. But I totally agree. You do what is there. And the point I was going to make is
Always killing my baby dragon.
the standard model. There's a lot of fluidity on first. So, for example, nothing in that theory tells you what the mass of the electron is or how the quarks couple to each other. Those numbers are just observed in time.
When you said three numbers, you mean not particular.
Correct. Unpredicted by the structure of the theory. In string theory, if you find a solution in string theory that produces particle physics like we see in our universe, none of those numbers are free. They're all determined by the configuration of these extra dimensions and the structure of the theory. So it's a huge array of physics to get right all of it. You have to classical physics, but you also have to answer questions of cosmology and the large-scale structure and history of the universe. So how are you going to decide if string theory is wrong? I think that it's most likely that we'll be able to say that the structures that we see in nature, we can argue that we either can or can't get the weight to the regimes and numbers and effects that we already know are there. Much more rapidly than we're building accelerator to see a story.
I love that. That's what you're saying is whether or not you can test the dimensionality or the other bit of physicality of string theory, if you're a theorist and going back
my win is going
I plug this string this way, it's going to give me an electron, and it's going to give me this mass, right? And it's the only mass that's going to come out of it, because that's the right number and the right vibration, and it's going to look like an electron. That's a Nobel Prize right there. And it's like the way they do like modeling or whatever.
Oh, finally got through that one, baby. Hey, I'm a noob at this game, okay? I'm a newbie. with a capital N, okay? With a capital N and whatever else you got to put in there. I'm a newbie, all right? So don't be judging my Yu-Gi-Oh skills, all right? I'm an old generation player. I'm a one the first to second season. That's it. I ain't get past the first and second season.
You're going to say, oh, here's our universe, here's all these numbers, we just break everything straight. That hasn't happened.
We trying, we working.
People are still trying to think about this. So what are some of the big obstacles? One of the issues is that it turns out that when you ask all the different configurations for these extra dimensions in their view, initially the hope was that maybe that was very restricted. Maybe there was just a couple. The question of how many could you have? So if you said, what if we just had, say, 2 extra dimensions that the consistency equation function theory? Turns out there's a unique answer from the different equations to tell you what that shape could be. If you ask, is there the 1/4 extra dimension? There's a unique answer. And then if you say, what happens if there were 6 extra dimensions? It happens to be the extra dimensions that we think need to allow us to get in the
Oh.
Turns out there are
Is that a blackluster soldier? It's cool.
Counting that have been found so far.
So it sounds
Man,
to
you
me
gotta
like
read.
what you guys are saying is we have this instrument, and on the instrument there's a certain amount of notes that are just resident in the instrument. And now we have to figure out one song. Because all those notes can make however many billions of songs.
We need the one
We
song.
gotta find the one song that all those notes can play.
But it also sounds like nature's just messing with us.
Yeah.
It sounds so. This is one of the things that people push back in string theory. Is, okay, all these possible solutions of string theory exist.
Hey.
You could just have this big soup of things, and some people have even made that argument. They call it the string landscape, where they say, you could just land anywhere. So what if there's some place in the string landscape that looks like our universe? There's all this other junk. What is the theory actually telling us then? And the argument I would say against that is that in something like quantum field theory, which we already talked about, for the standard model, the zoo of all the quarks and leptons that we know in nature, there are an infinite number of quantum field theories that I could write down that aren't our universe. But it doesn't matter because we do know how to write down one that does look like our universe. So string theory is sort of a natural extension of quantum field theory in some ways, and it has a lot of flexibility that may have nothing to do with the physics that we observe in the universe. The question is, once you zoom in on the...
We got nigga.
So, for example, do you find that if you see the particles that we already know, that additional particles must be there, or additional forces? Or can you correlate features in cosmology and the large-scale structure of the universe, like dark energy or dark matter, with particle physics that we need to be true?
I don't want to lessen the significance of how you describe that. But if I understand it, you're saying on this, like you said, this landscape of 500 million possible songs that it could be, and you want the one song that's yours. It's not useful if you find it unless upon finding it, you get other insights about the universe we're in. Because otherwise it's just a jigsaw story. Right? It's, the universe is just that, and we explain it with just that, and it doesn't take you any further down the street. Is that a fair way to characterize it?
And another thing that people are asking within string theory is, how many possible quantum theories of gravity could there be? So imagine that string theory isn't how our universe works. We know it's a quantum theory of gravity, but it might be too idealized to describe our universe. So in physics, we talk about, pretending that cows are spheres in order to make the math easier.
Consider a spherical cow. Guys do that all the time. Okay. Yeah, it's just easier.
Our Society of Physics students has a spherical cow T-shirt here for at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it's a thing. That's pretty wild. It's a thing. If you want to maximize the milk production of a cow, right? Start with spherical cow.
Start with spherical cow.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. I don't want that milk. I don't want milk from a spherical cow. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going goat's milk from now on.
The point I'm making is that maybe string theory isn't, it's just too idealized to describe how quantum gravity works in our universe. But a lot of theorists are questioning, okay, if that's the case, we know this is a quantum theory of gravity. So if you had another one, right, like the right one that isn't string theory, how could those two theories be related? And there's groups of string theorists who are trying to argue and provide mathematical theorems. For example, someone at Harvard has created something called the cubordism conjecture. And what he's positing is that perhaps if you had more than one quantum theory of gravity, they must be connected in some way. Otherwise, you would develop inconsistencies in how you could describe quantum gravitational effects. So the argument I'm making here is that even if string theory isn't the right one,
Oh, shit.
whatever that is, there is connected to the right one. So maybe we still learn structure about how string theory can inform.
Oh, that sucks.
Is this what, not exactly what you just said, but the comprehensive look at all of this, is this what gives rise to the multiverse and infinite number of universes?
That's a different question, but an interesting one.
The answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay.
Then we'll say that for
We'll say that for later. Yeah. Okay.
Your specific specialty within string theory is particle phenomenology. And could you just introduce us to that?
Absolutely. So that's the question of whether string theory can produce solutions that look like the particle physics that we see, the standard model, for example, and the interactions of the other fundamental forces that aren't gravity. And so one of the things that I worked on at various times over my career is trying to ask, for the types of solutions that we see in string theory, what characterizes those that would give us things like we see in nature? So again, coming back to this concept of the string landscape, there's a famous number of like possible solutions that you can get for this string landscape, a number like 10 to the 500, which is unimaginably large as string round.
NTP 500.
10 to the 500.
That's not a number.
That's not a number. It's crazy.
That's not even a number.
But in that counting of solutions in string theory, so this is again, something people say, oh, you got 10 to the 500. How are you going to learn it? All these 10 to the 500 that people have counted historically, none of them included in what? Okay. So if you know something about the universe you want to model, you don't care if there's 10 to the 500. Yeah, none of those can possibly give rise to the type of physics we see. So the type of research that I do is trying to correlate what shapes for these extra dimensions, what properties of string theory will narrow the field down to things that are close to arguable.
So have you gotten there yet? What's the hold up here?
We're getting better. I mean, in all honesty, we've not delivered on that yet, but we are, I feel like, still making legitimate progress.
Okay, so how about this? Because one of the great redeeming qualities of all scientific discovery, or the search thereof, is even if I don't get to the thing I am trying to find out, along the way, I find out all this other great stuff that now gives us computers and digital cameras and GPS, but I didn't get to what I wanted. So what have you guys contributed that it has been your happy accident?
Well, I'm going to say that more tightly.
Say it tighter.
You ready? No, I love that.
Go ahead.
I love it, but I want to say it another way.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. In your failures, how have you succeeded?
So I think the answer to that is really big, and string theory as a field has really expanded to huge different numbers of subfields and researchers who do really different things. So there are many different answers to that question I could, percolating in the back of my mind. One is the discovery of the holographic principle, which says that phenomena like gravity are very deeply related to things called gauge theories, which again describe the interactions of particles and charges, that these things can be related in different dimensions of spaces. So the statement is that gravitational theories can be related to gauge theories that live in the boundary of that space. Things like the holographic principle are an extremely deep bit of structure that says that gauge theories and particle physics and gravity are not as different as we thought they were. That's a really profound, I would say, observation that people is using.
So the simplest example that I've heard of the holographic principle is the surface of the event horizon of a black hole. Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong here. So you fall through, the surface as a memory of everything that passed through it. And so you can think of the information content of the surface as the full understanding of anything.
Everything that's inside.
That's inside.
Because there's no loss of information because it's all retained
on the same there. And so that inside the black hole, and if we are inside a black hole of our universe, if we have a horizon, which is an analogized to the event horizon, then we would be the holographic projections of that. So is this a fair, did I capture that correctly?
Wow.
Okay, given that, I've yet to heard a physicist rebut that. So is it general agreement that that's probably real?
In an idealized sense, yes. How much that pertains, what you learn from that in our universe, I think, is still up for grabs. And this is again something people are taking that very actively. Other analogies that I would give for useful stuff that's come out of string theory is relationships again between things like particle physics and cosmology. So the study of dark energy, dark matter, descriptions of inflation, those things being related to how particle physics realizes those, and also structure in mathematics. So there are a lot of new fields of mathematics that were sparked due to that dialogue between mathematicians and physicists that arose through string theory and these shapes of extra dimensions.
So that's good. So you're citing mathematicians, right?
Yeah.
And then they reached out and wanted some of you in their department, right?
So good. Yeah, and I think it's a very much a mutual relationship.
Which is why you're taking a job away from another professor.
So one example of this, there's something called the minimal model program in geometry, which tries to classify basically all these higher dimensional complex shapes, like all of them. Can you write down compact geometries in any number of dimensions and characterize all their properties and come up with sort of a zoo of every possible geometry?
Well, this is your other specialty, algebraic geometry.
That's right.
Was that a spin-off of the rest of these interests? Is that?
No, it's very much tied to it. So the question of trying to produce particle physics from string theory, that's a particle physics question, but the actual computation you have to do really rests on the properties of these compact extra dimensions. So you have to do a ton of geometry to extract the numbers that you want, like the mass of the electron and a couple into the quark. So it's sort of intrinsically interdisciplinary in that sense.
I'm going to tell you slower. And if you don't have the right auto cover, this could really blow your budget.
Vital Parts Technology Peptides for healthy hair, skin, nails, and joints.
Southwest is introducing Extra Legroom Seat.
Get comfortable. Hearing yourself basically. Hang road noise with the noise silencer words of the Firestone Affinity AS.
Hey, this is Keanu, and the little thing I love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips are all the different sauces. You gotta dip it in that zesty buffalo. It's tangy, sweet, it's got a good kick. The chicken itself is good on its own, but once you put the sauce on, come on.
Real guests paid for their testimonial.
Wow. So I want to hear more about this geometry. So here's something that is so simple and low dimensional. So don't laugh at me, but I want you to take this to your level. I was talking with a topologist, algebraic, or one of these math folk, and we were talking about knots. Okay, just knots. All right, and you take a string and tie a knot in it, and it's a knot.
It's a square knot,
or whatever your knot is.
Whatever knot.
Okay, whatever's your knot, and then we're in 3 dimensions here. So a one-dimensional string can make a knot. I said, what's that in 4 spatial dimensions? He said, you can't tie a knot in 4 dimensions. You would just lift it up and it would just unravel. So that just messed with me. And then I thought, let's take away a dimension. Let's go to 2 dimensions. Okay. 2 dimensions. And if you have 2-dimensional people in a flat surface, if you take a rope and just loop it on itself, they cannot undo that. That is an unsolvable knot to them because they can't pass it back over itself to come around.
Right.
All right. But in 3 dimensions, just pick it up and it's gone.
Right.
So I couldn't sleep that night. And then I wondered to myself, what is going on in the mind of someone who's imagining all of this in even higher dimensions than that?
What kind of drugs are you on? Come on, Laura, don't hold out on me. I shared my ayahuasca. Give us the real dope.
You never told us that ayahuasca, the high dimensionality person, talked to you.
Well, you know what? I have. You guys are the first to know. Because it was so freaky and freaked me out, and I never talked about it. But then when she said,
there was a string theorist of the future
exactly.
said, you are our savior.
It was the Neo of string theory.
Yeah. What is the Matrix, Neo? So please tell us.
I really like the analogy. I think another one that's sort of more directly related to the kind of stuff I do. So we talked about Einstein's theory of gravity. you could ask, imagine that the entire universe was two-dimensional, right? Could you have curvature that could lead to like gravitational-like theories in two dimensions? And it turns out there's only one number that you get to specify. It's basically, we imagine like the surface of a sphere, it's whether it's, positively curved or negatively curved, like a salad. That's it. And so you can't have dynamical gravity in two dimensions. Likewise, the form gravitation takes will change as you go up in dimension. So absolutely, this question of, what can you not and unmount? What can you use to describe how space and time is curved? All of that changes with different dimensions.
Yeah, so you have to get your brain up in there.
I'm telling you right now, I need a nap. Just from this conversation.
But the cop-out thing here is all the higher dimensions are all compacted, so I don't have to think about or worry about them. I'll never see them, right? How impactful are the compacted dimensions if you're trying to manifest gravity in higher dimensions? Does gravity care if it's compacted?
All right, I'm out. I'm getting my ass
Care about
whooped.
the dimensionality.
Come back tomorrow. Thank y'all for watching. Yugioh!